So, check this out, people. Back in 2019, I was hospitalized just before the shutdowns due to the COVID, right? I spent 11 days in the hospital. They had me in bed for 11 straight days. I didn't get out of bed once, not to pee, not to take a shit, not to eat, for nothing, right? I couldn't move, I couldn't function. They had IVs in me on both arms, on my left arm, on my right arm. They wanted to put a stent in my somewhere in my left shoulder down into my stomach or into my heart somewhere, I'm not exactly sure, in order to give me nutrients to feed me so that I can not lose my muscle. Because according to the nurse who was tending to me, I hadn't eaten in weeks and I was in bed for at least 2 weeks. And so I was deteriorating, right? While in the hospital, I laid in bed and all I could do was watch the news, right? And while I was watching the news, I was watching the politics, of course, the drama that was going on with the shutdowns, with President Trump, with all the nonsense they were talking about him and all the lies. I was a Democrat before that, until I found myself in the hospital with nothing to do but watch the news. And while watching the news, I noticed all the nonsense and all the bullshit that they were talking about Trump. Now, mind you, I didn't vote for Trump the first time, and I didn't vote for Biden. I didn't vote for anybody. I voted for Obama. I voted for Clinton at the time, but I didn't vote for anyone this time. And I wasn't going to vote for Trump. But when I found myself in the hospital, I became a little nervous because while watching the TV, everything I was listening to and hearing was what sounded like propaganda. Now, propaganda is when news stations, radio, TV, everything and everyone gives you a story that is one-sided, right? Everything is one-sided. They don't give you both sides of the story. And everything I was listening to was negative about Trump. So that made me curious, and I started to watch Donald Trump's speeches because according to the news, he was a racist. Come to find out that everything they were saying about him was a lie. All of the news stations were editing the things he was saying. They were making it sound like he was saying racist things when in reality he wasn't, because I ended up watching his speeches and then I ended up watching the news, and the news was making it sound as if though he was saying things that he was not actually saying. And so that made me realize that something was wrong, that we were being lied to, we were being shammed, we were being scammed, right? And so that made me start to lean towards Trump and to move away from the Democratic Party, which I was a part of for most all of my life. Because there's nothing worse than being lied to. And because I was being lied to so much by the mainstream media, I decided to change my vote. And then for the first time, I voted Republican and I voted for Trump. Now, while all of this drama was going on with the presidency and the Black Lives Matter movement nonsense, because that's what that movement is. It's a bunch of bullshit and nonsense. It's all about politics. While all of this was going on, right, all the riots, there were other things going on also, right? There were positive things, right? For example, we were given stimulus checks every month, I think for about 2 months. tops, right? And those who own businesses were given money in order to sustain their businesses so that when the COVID is over, they can continue their business and not lose it. And those stimulus checks, while people were sitting at home with nothing to do because people were bored out of their mind. Now, I was working. I never stopped working. Thank God I worked in a field that was considered essential work. I was working for the DOT, and I was shutting down the highways in order so that the engineers can repair the bridges. So I continued to work. And I also received a stimulus check, just like all Americans did, right? And so, because people didn't have anything to do, they were watching YouTube. And a lot of these people who were watching YouTube got caught up in the AMC GME fiasco, because that's what it is, a fiasco. And because they were enticed by YouTubers and they had all of this time in their hands, right? Because they didn't have work. Most people weren't working. And then they were getting free money. And this is why, for the first time in the stock market history that I know of, the market was doing something that it was never doing before. And it was bullish most of the time, right? You could put your money almost in any stock and you were guaranteed to make money. I made 10 grand on a 5-cent stock in one day in Dogecoin. I put $700 down on a Tuesday, and that same Tuesday, the stock went up some, I don't know, 4,000%. I made 10 grand. And so you have people who were buying into this diamond hand nonsense, right? Because the last thing you should do is diamond hand the stock, any stock, because everybody's going to grow old. Even those who are long-term investors in a stock eventually withdraw their money because they're growing old. And so they want to live out their days spending the money that they invested, right? But for some reason, this ape movement that was created by the Reddit crowd, by YouTubers, they were singing this to the moon nonsense, and they were crying out, diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands, right? And the fact is that these people got played. They got played by scammers who knew what they were doing, scammers who scam for a living, and whose job it is to take advantage of any situation where people come up with a lot of money. And because there was so much money being given away for free, and people had extra money to put into the stock market, that money that they put into the stock market caused the market to spike. Not just AMC, not just GME, not just Dogecoin, but BBIG, Palantir, Tesla, you name it. All of these stocks were bullish. There was money to be made in the market. I made a lot of money trading, not holding, because that was a situation where you don't hold on to stocks during the highs that the market was in at the time. And so I knew better than to buy high and hold for long term when I bought in high. The objective was to buy when the stock goes up 30%, I sell. And if the stock tanks, even better. I watch it, I buy in, I buy low, and then I sell high. The point is that I was playing the market. I was playing the market because I knew the trend. I knew what was happening wasn't going to last. I knew that what was happening it was an artificial spike in the market. The artificial spike was caused by everyday people, not everyday retail investors, but everyday people who wanted to become rich and who were playing into the market and playing into the hype that they were being sold by YouTubers. And that was that AMC was going to the moon, that GME was going to the moon. This is why when GME went up to $400 a share, the very next day it tanked, because it was a pump and dump. And those who bought in low sold high, while the majority of ignorant investors who never invested in their life, who never traded in their life, got played because they followed these YouTubers who told them to hold to the moon, who told them to diamond hand. And they held and lost the opportunity to capitalize during a time when the market was at its highest. It was bullish between 2019 and 2021. That's it. And if you notice today, 2024, none of those numbers that we once had do we have today. None. And it is very rare when the market, where you can find 10 stocks that squeeze all at the same time. Because back then in 2021, it was more than just AMC, GME, and Dogecoin squeezing. There was plenty of money put into the market to cause the market to squeeze. Unfortunately, the opportunity was lost. And those people who keep feeding you this nonsense, for example, Marantz Rants today posted a video claiming that there was a glitch, that GME is actually $50, selling you the same nonsense that AMC pumpers were selling you when they were talking about the same bullshit about glitches. Nothing he says is any different from the GME crowd, or rather from the AMC crowd, who were always selling you some bullshit where there was always a catalyst. It was either the reverse split, it was either phase 1, phase 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. It was, for example, like New York Angelo, he always got some bullshit. AMC confirmed, GME confirmed, squeeze confirmed. There's always the confirmation with this motherfucker. There's always a GME is about to make people rich thumbnail. There's always a AMC and GME is about to squeeze video. How is it that in 4 years, right? Give or take 4 years, AMC and GME has done the opposite of what everyone has been telling you. And though GME had its run, because it had a run 2 months ago, my question to those who have been pumping it, saying that it was going to go to the moon, did it go to the moon? And those scumbags who come on my channel talking shit, talking about, oh, look, this guy's talking shit and GME is going up right now. Just because a stock goes up $3 doesn't mean it's going to the moon, because the very next day or a week later, it loses the very same profits that it made. It drops down $3, because that's what stocks do. Stocks go up to $3 and then they go down to $3. That is the nature of the market. And these scumbags on YouTube want you to believe that every time the stock goes up, they were right. You see, I told you AMC was going to go up. I told you GME was going to go up. And then 4 days later, it tanks. That they don't tell you, right? That they don't brag about. And the problem is that those who watch these scumbags on YouTube, on Reddit, on any one of these social media platforms, when you watch these people and you don't know no better, you get taken advantage of. You get taken advantage of because you don't know the history of the market. You don't know how the market works. You just got here yesterday. And these assholes on YouTube who claim that they know what's going on, who give you the DD and the TA, are just a bunch of punks who just got here yesterday who don't know shit about the market. They are everyday people just like you and I who wipe their ass just like you and I when they take a shit. But they want you to believe that their message, their TA, their DD is better than everybody else's. And this is why you've lost your monies. This is why you've lost everything. And unfortunately, opportunities like the ones we had in 2021 when AMC squeezed, GME squeezed, and Dogecoin squeezed are not going to come again. They're not. You honestly think that the market makers are going to allow something that happened the first time that they knew nothing about? The majority of market makers, all of the market makers, none of them knew what was going to happen when people rallied behind GME. No one knew until it happened. And then when it happened, they all got together, just like the Reddit crowd, just like the YouTube crowd got together and rallied together to squeeze the hedge funds and the market makers. Market makers learned their lesson and they got together and decided a strategy to protect themselves and protect their money. And you think that you can come into your enemy's house, rob them one time, and that they're not going to be prepared for you the second time, holding a shotgun, waiting for you to come through the door? And so you think that these market makers are not prepared to shut you down the same way they shut you down with AMC, GME, Dogecoin in 2021 and just 2 months ago with GME? And who's shutting you down? Each time GME has a run, who's shutting you down? I'm going to tell you who's shutting you down. Roaring Kitty is shutting you down when he buys in low and then you FOMO in behind him. And then when it spikes up, he sells, making millions while you continue to hold like an asshole. And so people like him are the ones who's taking your money, not the market makers. You see, what you got to understand is that when these people talk about market makers being scammers or how we got to beat the SEC and fight Citadel and Ken Griffin, that these people are creating an unfair market, the only ones who are saying that are those who didn't sell AMC and GME at the top. The only ones who are saying that are those who didn't sell because they were diamond handing, because they were played, they were lied to by Trace Trades, Short the VIX. They were lied to. They were betrayed by these YouTubers. You got to understand there's a system out here. And the system is made not for your benefit. The system is made for those who are creating the system to beat you. And what system am I talking about in this case? The ape system, the ape movement, the diamond handlers, the mooners who cry to the moon, to the moon, to the moon, while selling behind your back. And you hold the stock like you hold your dick in your hand when you're waiting for your girlfriend to show up and she doesn't show up. And unfortunately, you lost the opportunity to gain your money. And you continue to hope, right? Like this is some faith and some religion. And you need to understand that there's only one way to get your money. And that's to get a job. And that's to hold on to your job. And that's to get an extra job if you have to. Because when you work, you're guaranteed a payday every week, unlike the market. When you play the market, you're going to lose. And if you want to invest, you have to do your homework. And I don't use words like DD because I don't want to be in that same category as these scumbags on YouTube who always use the word DD, shill, diamond hands, to the moon, because those are scammers, those are scumbags. They want you to hold so you can cause the stock to spike so that they can have the opportunity to sell at the top. That's the game, people. And unfortunately, only a few of those who were invested in GME and AMC have won the game. And I can count them on both my hands. Roaring Kitty is one of them. Roaring Kitty keeps getting paid because he's making his money off the backs of everyday ignorant retail investors who FOMO in behind him. Every time he sends out a meme, everybody says, oh, Roaring Kitty is back. Roaring Kitty is back. Roaring Kitty is back. And they follow behind him. And as soon as they follow behind him and the stock spikes, he sells and leaves everybody behind. It's nobody's fault. It's your fault. It's your fault for being ignorant and not using common sense. Nobody who invests or plays to market is a little boy or a little girl. Everybody here is a grown ass person. And unfortunately, because there's a sucker born every minute, scammers know who to go after. And who do they go after? They go after people like you, who instead of taking profits, they want a diamond hand, a shitty stock that makes no money, that has no profits. For example, GME has earned some $4 billion. Do you think they earned that money? Do you think they made that money? They didn't earn it. They took it. GME took the money that it has today from the backs of everyday novice retail investors who put their money into that stock, believing that it was going to the moon because they followed these scumbags on YouTube. And when the opportunity came for GME to capitalize, for GameStop to capitalize, they capitalized while you were holding. And that's how GME makes its money, because GME doesn't make its money by opening their stores. Nobody walks in and out of GME enough so that GameStop can earn some $4 billion. They took that money from you. The same way Roaring Kitty took it from you, the same way Trace took it from you, and the Kansas 5, and all of these other YouTubers. So in the end, people, you lost. You lost. If you don't take profits when a company that makes no revenue but makes their money from everyday retail investors who cause their stock to go up, you don't take your profits, then unfortunately you're just ignorant. You're ignorant because the company isn't making money. They're gonna take whatever money they can from whatever place they can. And where's GME taking their money, getting their money? From you. Not because you're walking into their stores and buying, but because you're putting your money into their stock. And so they're taking it from you, and they're taking everyday hardworking Americans' monies. They're taking their monies. And then you got scumbags cheering on GME, lying to you, talking about these glitches, talking shit about AMC while he is doing the exact same thing that AMC pumpers were doing, talking about DD, TA, and glitches, and the real price of GME, and the true price of this, and Citadel that. These are all scumbags, bro. They're cheating you. They're lying to you. AMC is a pump and dump. GME especially is one of the biggest pump and dump scams that was ever created by Roaring Kitty and the majority of AMC and GME pumpers who just got here long after the apes left. Because these people who call themselves apes today are not apes. They just got here yesterday. The majority of apes have left. They're no longer apes because they got played. So in the end, people, if you don't get your money, you're going to get fucked. Get your money.